Hello friends, we have repaired the first Cybertruck. It's not that we encountered anything serious, but every subsequent owner of a Cybertruck will face the same issues. And before we dive in, please consider subscribing because we produce unique content on a regular basis. When the Cybertruck flips over onto its roof, which side will it land on? The front or the back? They are not always properly installed. It was just a decorative trim, test for water resistance. And I don't really like it, you know. Here I am, looking into a triangle while a barrier cleans the windshield, and I'm holding on to some kind of a giant parallel pipe. I have a feeling that they never wrote Tesla in this car, just because at any moment they could say that it wasn't them who made this truck. To understand just how important the Cybertruck is to us, and how it has impacted our company, you only need to look at the Cyber 3 next to it. This is a car that only came into existence because we saw Cybertruck, and when we looked at a regular Model 3 with performance features, we thought it's a beautiful car that drives great, but looks worse than some Mazda 3S. So what did we do? We transformed the Model 3. Well, not exactly into something resembling a Cybertruck, but let's say we breathed some light futuristic notes in it, so-called glimpse into the future. And really, the Cyber 3 looks like a Model 3 from the 2030 model year. Even the new update of Model 3 doesn't measure up, at least in my subjective opinion, and this car just measures up. But the main thing that impressed us many years ago were the Cybertruck characteristics, and that's exactly what I want to talk about in more detail. Camera mirrors, which no longer surprises us because we already use them on other Tesla models. So the mirrors are kind of there, but they serve more as a fetish. And here is where it gets surprising. Starting with the windshield wipers. Instead of wipers, we were actually supposed to have some kind of lasers. Remember, the news was everywhere that there would be no wipers because there was no room for them. And they promised some kind of lasers which would remove raindrops from the windshield. As you can see, we got lucky this time. It rained and drops are lying around, but the laser is not visible. But you can see a huge barrier, and there's no other way to call it, practically human height. And it's not as elegant as a laser. This is one of the promises that didn't come true. How loud it really is. At night you can really hear it very clearly. Look, the wiper mostly stays at the bottom when it rains. The barrier is mostly closed when it needs to be open. We wait and wait. Who exactly designed the algorithms for the barrier is unclear. But luckily, you have an additional button on the steering wheel if you choose to control it manually. We won't get the beautiful solid headlight that looked so incredibly cool at the initial presentation. Right after watching this presentation, we collaborated with Vplay, and they made a full-size model of Cybertruck for us that we placed near our showroom. It stood there for a long period of time, and it had that remarkable headlight in front, which looked absolutely stunning. Moving on. Someone really didn't like that this rubber part of the hubcap rubs against the tire. It seems incredibly annoying, frustrating and irritating, and since the tire sometimes presses a little bit more, a small mark remains on the tire. And then that someone suggested that this tiny little dot would inevitably, sooner or later, destroy the whole tire. And Tesla made a genius move to avoid annoying anyone. Now, as I mentioned, it is spring 2024, and the hubcaps are simply unavailable. Comment below if they finally redesigned and supplied them again. A very simple and convenient hatch. Frankly speaking, I haven't seen such a basic hatch even in the first Model S cars. A piece of thin recycled plastic. Let's get to the front. By the way, the front trunk is somewhat unimpressive. Basically, there's nothing here. The only thing is that since this is the foundation version for which a client had to pay more, there is an imitation of weld seams on plastic. I don't know who considers it cool. To me it seems strange because in the first version they could have put an aluminum plate here and made these weld seams real. As I said, there's absolutely nothing here except for a very minuscule little mechanism that will let you open it up if you ever get locked in. And since this car doesn't have any parking sensors, not a single one, the car uses Tesla Vision. For the first time we have a camera here. There is a special light for the blind spots. This is the first Tesla I can remember that shows blind spots. This feature also appeared in the new Model 3, but the light was hidden in the speaker. I only noticed it on the third day. What was promised and what was shown in the renders is that there was supposed to be a special tailgate that folds down so you can roll right in. There's nothing of that kind, just a regular tailgate. S for water resistance. It rained all day today. And I don't really like it, you know. There's some moisture here and it makes things feel quite uncomfortable. Now the water flows down from the roof. Everything is fine except for this leak on the sides. We watched again where the water flows. And the water flows right into the gap. This mechanism is currently the best on the market because the one on the Rivian constantly jams, being quite delicate. This one is a heavy duty. You literally can walk or jump on it. But things that have to remain dry shouldn't be placed in the bed. After all, it's a pickup truck. It starts to rain, so let's move inside. Now I will show you the biggest discrepancies that I found in this vehicle. The interior feels much cheaper, and not just feels, but is indeed actually much cheaper than in the new Model 3 2024, currently. The car came to us for this very reason. The interior rattles incredibly loudly. This car was clearly assembled by people. This thing hasn't been removed yet. This highly advanced cyber body should have had a more sophisticated part here. In other words, it's just an overlay for the sake of design. The only way to eliminate creaks in the car interior is to install sound and vibration insulation. The first step was to remove all plastic panels and Alcantara-covered parts, then sequentially add sound and vibration insulation materials. It was also crucial to sometimes replace plastic clips with metal ones, or vice versa if necessary, as they are not always properly installed, if installed at all. The client had previously come to us for sound and vibration insulation for their Model S and was pleasantly surprised with the results on their Cybertruck. So, if you are annoyed by the poor noise and vibration isolation in your Cybertruck, we can help.
Those people who designed this interior were probably aiming for a different budget initially. Because, well, first of all, you know, this leatherette, it's kind of, well, it's actually not smooth, it's kind of slightly wrinkled, a bit. The ambient lighting is quite primitive, meaning it's the simplest ambient you can find on AliExpress, but it's there and that's great. Let's finish with the front seats. The headroom forms a triangle that aligns right with the top of your head, meaning everything here is done exactly and precisely as it was once done in the Lamborghini Countach. So, when I sit behind myself, I find myself slightly ducking a bit because if I don't, my head hits the ceiling or roof. And now my knees are literally actually hitting the seat. Yes, I'm 6'3". Not all of you are 6'3", and some of you are 6'9" or even 6'10". Well, such people will feel perfectly comfortable behind the wheel. There's plenty of space, it's easy to get in, it's a tall car with that triangular shape, but there's nothing for you to do in the back.
One of the promises was a third seat in the front. It should have served as a replacement for this console. Basically, it was supposed to be this console which had to lift up and transform into a third seat. But what is hard to understand is the promise of a 500-mile range. 500 miles is quite serious. In real life, though, it only reaches 300 miles, which is pretty mediocre. And after driving it for a bit, I realized that those 300 miles seemed to disappear very quickly. But the most hate was about the Cybertruck's price of $39,900. At this price, the car should have been released. This car next to me is not the top model, and if you order it now in March 2024, it will cost you $120,000 whenever you receive it. Again, it is not a top-tier car. The top-tier 3-motor car is even more expensive. This is just a 2-motor car. The expected price of the single-motor truck, which would be released someday in 2025 or 2026, is $63,000. The question is, what is the point of releasing a car for $63,000 if you can sell the exact same car with an additional engine for $100,000? I mean, practically, it is the same car with a slightly reduced battery. But anyone who is even slightly familiar with the production process understands that adding one engine and a couple of batteries is definitely not worth extra $40,000. It was supposed to be bigger than the Ford F-150. The Ford F-150 is an icon of pickup truck manufacturing. This is the kind of vehicle that evolved, but not too much during the last 70 years. Cybertruck came out exactly the same size as the F-150, and I understand why. Because it won't fit into a standard garage even if it is made 8 inches larger. The Cybertruck is the lightest of its class, though it is a large pickup truck that weighs 6,800 pounds. I remind you that the pre-facelift Model X reached a weight of 6,390 pounds. That means this vehicle is designed with advanced engineering and cutting-edge technology, making it not only heavier, but also 1.5 times longer. It offers greater payload, capacity, better dynamics, and a variety of details and options that were previously unavailable in the Model X. But, of course, it can't carry 7 people. But on the other hand, it can tow a trailer. And you can also use this bed, which is quite large as well. If we compare Cybertruck with another supercar pickup such as Hummer weighs 10,360 pounds. The Cybertruck has a range of 340 miles with a battery of only 123 kilowatt hours. This is the smallest battery among all competitors. In other words, any competitor, any pickup that considers itself a competitor and is electric has a larger battery. Lightning, 130 kilowatt hours. Rivian, 130 kilowatt hours. Silverado, 200 kilowatt hours. Hummer, which is basically the same as the Silverado but with a more attractive design, 250 kilowatt hours. And Cybertruck's battery is only 123 kilowatt hours. Yet this vehicle has a range of 340 miles, compared to Hummer, which has a range of approximately 400 miles with a 250 kilowatt hours battery. This is incredible. Another incredible thing, the entire front part of the vehicle, this whole section, is made from a single piece, and the entire rear part is made from a second piece. One part, 2 parts, and the attachments. The B-pillar is exactly the same as in any other car. Nothing unusual.
Overland, some light rain, and some sand, gravel, stone, and small pebbles, and a bit of dust.
In general, there's a whole off-road menu, but it can't be activated while driving. So, we didn't activate it while on the move. However, for the off-road terrain we encountered, it wasn't necessary to raise it at all. When the Cybertruck flips over onto its roof, which side will it land on? The front or the back? Exactly.
If it gets stuck, lift it higher to pull it out.
Even higher.
Even higher.
Wow, look at that height. Is he still rising? The height of the vehicle is now just over 2 meters. Let's try to climb in. A monster truck in one package.
So, it's time to sum up. Did Tesla manage to create a full-fledged pickup? Well, most likely not. This vehicle has a huge number of features and inconsistencies. But once upon a time, Tesla already tried to make a minivan, and they ended up with a minivan supercar. It was supposed to be a crossover initially, but in the end it turned out to be a minivan supercar. This is the Model X, which is an incredibly fun car with a huge number of features. And we have something similar here. This is not just a pickup, it's a supercar pickup. It's a Lambo truck. Call it whatever you want. It's up to you to decide if this vehicle will be in your garage or not. But it has definitely left its triangular mark on the whole automotive history. That's all for now. Share this video with a potential Cybertruck owner and see you in the next episode. Bye.